welcome everybody. If everybody could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance of the flag, and Mr. Lesher is going to do the prayer for us tonight.
We had several tragedies in our community this week, and we want to give our prayers for the affected families and their friends. Protector God, you give us the gift of life. In this season, when we enjoy the wonders of your creation, we are mindful of how fragile and precious life can indeed be. We remember before you the Bridges family, who lost a young man this week, the Pratt family, who lost a young woman this week in yet another tragedy, and the family of the victim of drowning this week in the Miles River. Grant that we might provide comfort in their time of grief. And now turn our minds to the fair and just governance of Talbot County. In your most holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lesher. Appreciate that. Okay. We'll go over tonight's agenda. We have the agenda before us of August 9th before us. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda? Okay, hearing none, the chair moves that the agenda be accepted as unanimous consent. Okay, moving on to the minutes of July 12th and July 26th. Council's had a chance to review the minutes. Is there any additions, deletions, or corrections to the minutes? Okay. Hearing none, the chair moves that the minutes be accepted as unanimous consent. Disbursement. Oh, it's okay. Okay. Yeah, well, let's keep going. Disbursements of August 2nd and August 9th. The council has a chance to review them. Is there any additions, deletions, or corrections to the disbursements? Okay, hearing none, the chair moves that disbursements be accepted as unanimous consent. Okay, so we're excited tonight to introduce Sharon.
Dr. Pepukayi?
There you go. Doctor, yes. So if you could come on up, we'd be glad to hear from you and see you and introduce you. Well, welcome.
Yes,
welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
This is a meeting I have not been to yet in my 30 days.
Yes.
Those of you may know or not know, I'm a from here, come back here.
Okay.
So I did grow up here, St. Michael's graduate, and so I'm just delighted and humbled to be back here working in the role of the superintendent for the school district. I'm currently in my listening and learning tour, so 30 days been in the role, and I have covered a plethora of ground.
Right.
Meeting people, some of you right here in the room, been attending different meetings, and most importantly, I got to be with the kids this summer during summer school. So that was important for me to start being out there talking with students. So I'm excited to continue this journey through this month as well, August.
That's great.
So, you know, I have a long list, my calendar's full, and I'm
sure.
just out and about in the community, like I said, listening and learning and meeting everyone that's pertinent to the school district to make it successful. So
Well,
thank you
great.
for having me.
That's great. Mr. Peck?
Yes, Dr. Pepukayi, welcome, and it's good to be a from here, come back here situation. So I know that means a lot to you to come back to your home county and to be in such a prestigious role. I was very excited to see you on the agenda this evening, get an opportunity to meet you. I think the last time they had something at the school, I wasn't able to attend to meet you personally. So it's great to meet you face to face, and hopefully we can sit down just for a chit chat and some coffee maybe, just to get to know each other a little bit better. So welcome aboard. The school system is growing. It seems like every year rather adding or subtracting students. So a lot of fluidity there in our school system. A lot of diversity too. School system has changed a lot over probably since the last time you were here going to school. So a lot of changes to grapple onto. But again, congratulations and welcome back home.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. Can you fill in the in-between of the from here and the
Yes,
back
yes.
here?
So
and
when I
just
left and
for-
graduated from St. Michael's High, I then went to North Carolina to school. From North Carolina, I went up to Ohio to teach 5th grade, and then came over to Delaware, where I spent most of my time in Delaware, Wilmington, Newcastle, and Middletown. So I kind of worked my way down through the state, and I spent most of my years there in Delaware as a teacher and an administrator. So, and then I commuted for a year. So while I moved back here in July, I was still making that commute to Middletown for a year now. So it's nice to have it cut down by an hour, my drive. So.
Yeah. Well, very nice. We're looking forward. A few of us won't be working with you for very long, but I am looking forward to the, at least the 4 months that we have, and hopefully get everything, good relationship set up for your at least three new members of the county council come December. But I think that's good to have some fresh faces, both in the school system and in the county, and but very much looking forward to getting a chance to know you between now and the end of the year.
Likewise.
So welcome.
Thank you.
Yep. Mr. Lesher?
Well, as a council member, I look forward to working with you as the parent of an Easton Middle School student. I thank you for your service and your leadership, and know and trust that you are learning all the needs in our schools and how best we can address them. And as a member of this community, welcome.
Thank you.
And same with my colleagues. Welcome. We've seen each other a couple
Yes.
times and started getting to know you now. So it's a good feeling. I'm excited. I'm excited for the school board, the community, the kids. I'm sure it's great being back here now,
Yes.
and getting settled in, and, I can't imagine how that feels. And I'm sure with your history in the last 30 years, it's got to be great to come back here
It is.
and be able to do your thing here.
Yes.
And we're really very happy to have you.
Well, thank you,
So-
and I look forward to the partnership.
Yep, us too.
Okay.
Thank a lot.
Thank you.
Come to us anytime.
Okay,
Okay,
I will.
I
During
know you
budget
will.
season.
I know you will. I know you will. You'll be back soon.
Here we go.
Yeah, here we go. Okay. All right. That was great. Okay. Let's move on to introductions of a number of resolutions. Madam Secretary, could you go ahead and get us started on that?
A resolution to approve amended rules of procedure of the Talbot County Board of Appeals.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Thomas.
Yes, so this is something that's actually been in the works for some time. The Board of Appeals wants to update their existing rules of procedure under the charter and the code. This needs to be approved by a resolution of the county council.
Okay.
So they've approved inform the rules that are attached as Exhibit A to the resolution. So once the council approves it, then they will
Okay.
become effective.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay, council, would there be a raise of hands for introduction?
Your question?
Yeah,
Or you
yeah,
want
go-
to introduce first?
Yeah, I was gonna ask for introduction, but a raise of hands of introduction, then we can do. Okay.
By
Council
all four of us
questions?
present.
Yep.
So is this all brand new, or are there, I was looking for underscores and things like that, and is this all brand new that we didn't have before, or are there changes and I'm just seeing a clean copy?
You're seeing a clean copy. If I gave you the red line, it would just be very hard to follow. There were a lot of revisions.
Was there a specific thing or things, if you had to pick 3 items or something like that, that really prompted this change?
I think there was a lot of it was to reflect existing or desired practices, to clear up things that were inconsistent or outdated, that didn't make sense, like some language about rehearings versus reconsideration. So I think the board felt that this version is a better way to operate, but I don't think it will result in any radical changes either.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Madam Secretary, could you please announce the number and the public hearing, date and time, please?
Yes, this will be known as resolution number 333, and the public hearing will be held on Tuesday, September 13th at 6:30 p.m.
Okay, thank you. 333. Okay, we got our lotto number now. That's good. Perfect. All right. Next. Introduction of legislation.
A bill to amend Chapter 190 of the Talbot County Code, zoning, subdivision, and land development to add a definition of country club and to provide for the expansion and major modification of a non-conforming country club in the Resource Conservation RC District.
Okay. Mr. Thomas, you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about that?
Sure, this
Yep.
was, you may recall, initiated by request of Burry Parker.
Yep.
I believe he came and spoke about some of the rationale for it. Essentially, it would allow for expansion of, it would define what a country club is, and it would allow for expansion of non-conforming country clubs, similar to how non-conforming golf courses can currently expand.
Right.
The draft ordinance that's being introduced is in the form as proposed and approved by the Planning Commission.
Okay. Okay, great. Do you need to add anything, Brandon? Do you need to add anything?
No, we don't have anything.
You're good? Okay. All right. Council, can I show a raise of hands for introduction? Okay.
By Mr. Peck,
Yep.
Mrs. Price, and myself, Mr. Lesher.
Any questions, council?
I don't have any questions, just
Okay.
as an observation that we didn't have a full definition of country club
Mhm.
already in code. So, you know, I'm really appreciative that this is before council, so we can at least have something
Right.
to work from. I don't know whether it was an oversight or whether it was something that previous councils never came across. But I think this is good to actually have a definition in code to work from.
Okay. All right, great. Anything else? Okay, Ms. Price, you good? Okay.
No, I assume, I mean, when we have the public hearing, we'll get, you know,
Yep.
much more detailed
Okay.
explanation,
Okay.
but it is
Mhm.
even though it is a text amendment that would apply to all country clubs in rural conservation areas, there is only one that is actually fits in that category, and they are the ones who are proposing this text amendment, I assume for some type of expansion that doesn't fit their current zoning. Is that correct?
That would be my understanding, yes.
Okay, that's good. Madam Secretary, could you go ahead and give this a number and let us know what the time and the date is, please?
Yes, this will be known as Bill number 1523, and the public hearing will be on Tuesday, September 13th at 6:30 p.m.
Okay. All right, I appreciate that. Thank you.
A bill to amend Chapter 190 of the Talbot County Code, zoning, subdivision, and land development regarding solar energy systems.
Okay. Again, Mr. Thomas?
Sir, as council recall, on April 26th, the council adopted Resolution 329, which imposed a temporary moratorium on the processing of large-scale solar energy systems. This was to give the county attorney and staff and the planning commission time to work through some proposed amendments that would chiefly address mitigation on agricultural lands for large-scale solar energy systems better than what's currently in the code. So what you have before you is reflects the planning commission's recommendations to achieve that and address some
Okay.
other related issues.
Okay. All right, good. Brandon, you want to? Yeah, come on up.
So the language that you have in front of you for the amendment to the code
Mhm.
accomplishes several smaller things that weren't originally addressed when we adopted the, I guess, the solar energy systems language into the Talbot County code. You'll see those reflected throughout that language and strike through. Some of them are fairly minor, but the larger, more extensive changes to the mitigation requirements for large-scale solar energy systems on agricultural lands specifically. The proposal here includes an actual offset of a dollar figure amount for acreage that's taken out of agricultural production to facilitate large-scale solar energy systems, and that dollar amount that's collected by the county would then be put towards the contribution of the matching funds for the MALF program, along with what the council allocates every year for the MALF program. So it's a resolution that will hopefully create a more competitive nature to allow additional farms to be preserved within Talbot County to offset the acreage that's being used for large-scale solar energy systems in the future and down the road. The previous language that was in the code only allowed for a reservation of development rights on those properties that were proposed to be used for large-scale solar energy systems, which would just preserve the development rights on the property or allocate them to the county for the period of the time that the solar energy system was in operation. So the applicant would essentially gain those development rights back after the solar energy system was removed from the property. In further discussion with staff, the Planning Commission, and several applicants and experts throughout the state, the Planning Commission came before you with the idea of doing this offset in hopes and understanding that obviously green energy is something that's being pushed widely throughout the state of Maryland now, and preservation efforts through the county is something that's highlighted throughout our comprehensive plan, so it's very consistent with what we're currently doing, and it allows us to contribute more to a program that preserves farms in perpetuity.
Okay, all right, great, great. Council? No questions, okay. All right, you want?
And this also, there's the provision in here also preventing the removal of topsoil.
That's correct. So that's one of the revisions that I talked about that would be applicable to all solar energy system projects proposed. There was concern, I guess, previously voiced when the language was originally adopted, and it was of the understanding that that would not be permitted as part of the process. However, in staff evaluation of the code, that language was left out of the code. So putting that in allows us the safeguard of knowing that if a solar energy system is proposed on an agricultural property, that prime soil would not be stripped off the top of the property before the solar energy system's installed. That way, it would still provide some means of use of the property once that system's removed if somebody were to revert back to an agricultural use or use it for some other type of development that would need more than desirable grade of soils.
Well, where do you expect them to hold this topsoil?
So likely, and what you see with most of these solar energy developers, they look for flat land that they don't necessarily have to grade because grading is obviously expensive. So the least amount of grading possible is obviously more desirable for a project proposal. But if it was necessary to relocate any sort of that topsoil that's in that area, I assume or presume it could be used for any type of stormwater management that needs to be addressed on site or anything that would require dirt to be compacted, such as an access road or something of that nature. If another portion of the farm is still going to be utilized for farming, it could be used within that area for other agricultural practices. But the idea and the intent is to not allow that soil to be stripped off and then sold off-site and taken away from that property.
Well, if you're using it for a base for a roadway, then you are using it. I mean, that's just like selling it. If you're stripping the topsoil off and then using it elsewhere on the site for a road compacting or ditch compacting, then you're being better off just selling it. Well, let me not say you're better off selling it, but it's not going to be repurposed back as topsoil. I thought I read somewhere, and again, I haven't read this completely, but I thought I read somewhere that it had to remain on site.
Yes, that's correct.
My thinking of reading that would, it had to be stored somewhere in a pile or in a barn or on site.
I mean, you could certainly propose to store it there, but I don't think there's anything within that provision that would require them to utilize it in a specific manner or leave it in a holding storage area.
So it doesn't have to be, so it can be used elsewhere, it can be repurposed, I should say, elsewhere on the site,
That's correct.
but just can't be sold off site.
Right, but it says it shall remain on site.
I thought it said
Yes.
that too.
Yeah, 1E
1E?
says the
Okay.
removal of topsoil shall be minimized to the maximum extent practicable, and all topsoil shall remain on site unless otherwise addressed in a decommissioning plan. So I guess there's some kind of other decommissioning
Yeah, so
plan.
if
that's-
What is that?
For the decommissioning plan, if they were, I guess you could say if they were proposed to use it for something that would be an improvement for the solar energy project, part of that decommissioning plan could be to require them to, grade back out that topsoil for whatever it was used for. So if there was an access road on the property and it was used as a base for that access road, part of the decommissioning plan could be to remove the access road and reuse the soil or regrade the soil to a point where it could be utilized for farming again.
And that ties into one of the proposed amendments regarding the decommissioning plan, which requires for agricultural land, there needs to be a plan for how the land will be restored to a condition suitable for permitted agricultural uses once once the system is taken down, decommissioned.
So there's already several amendments being proposed. Can they be put up, because we're gonna have a public hearing, and some of these amendments might be, really change some things based on what people may have to say. I haven't even seen, they're not yet in our computer.
Mrs. Price, if I may, I think tonight our goal was to simply introduce what the Planning Commission has approved without amendment. It is my intention at our next meeting to introduce one amendment. I'm not aware of others. Maybe there are others that are in the pipeline, but I intend to, at our next meeting, and therefore prior to the September hearing, so that this will be in the public record before our September hearing, introduce an amendment that has come up since the recommendation by the Planning Commission, approval or recommendation that would further protect our best croplands and direct large-scale solar installations to fields with lower quality soils within the county.
So that sounds great. So I would hope that any council member who's going to look to introduce an amendment would do it as you are doing it, so that it is in the public domain prior to our public hearing in September.
And I will do so at the August 23rd meeting prior to that September meeting, yes.
Okay. Great. Any other questions from council? Okay.
Just a further comment, which is, we made this moratorium on large-scale solar just as short as we thought we feasibly could. I want to thank the staff and the Planning Commission for working through this issue and bringing forward the recommended legislation. They made, I think, quick but thorough work of this, and I just want to express my appreciation for their efforts in getting us to this point. I think this is a really important move for Talbot County going forward. We know how the importance that Maryland is putting on renewable sources of energy, the pressure that is going to put on Eastern Shore farmland, including in Talbot County, for the conversion of farmland to solar, and we want to make sure that it is done right. We're not going to stop this, but we can direct it. We can make sure that it is done appropriately, and that, I believe, is the intention here. And I want to thank all involved for their diligent efforts in bringing us to this point.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Pack. Thank you, Mr. Lusher.
Brandon, or maybe you or Mr. Thomas can help me with this. If I remember correctly, when we drafted the solar legislation, there was language in there that the solar field had to, I wouldn't say but had to be in proximation of a transmission line. Is that still standing, that it had to be near a transmission line for approval?
To my knowledge, that language doesn't exist within the current ordinance, and it's not proposed as part of this. I think Queen Anne's County did something similar to that with a trunk line mapping area where they would propose solar to be located. And I think the idea and the intent of this is just as Mr. Lesher had stated, not to necessarily control like the actual siting of where solar can exist, but to ensure that it doesn't, take place on areas or prime farmland areas that we have in the county that we've identified for preservation. I think you could assume that most of them are going to take place near a larger transmission line just because of the sheer cost involved in actually connecting into transmission lines. And they have to do a significant amount of evaluation to see whether or not the existing lines can take whatever energy is being put in and transport it into those. So I think you'll likely see most of the proposals taking place within areas that already have substantial utility improvements.
And I know there was much discussion about that, and maybe you're right, maybe the Queen Anne's County bill is what I'm remembering, but I would have to look at the actual, the current bill, because that would kind of direct where these larger solar arrays would need to go, is near those transmission lines that can handle the amount of electricity that they're putting through it, so.
Well, I think what we have to remember is we're really not controlling where these things are going. It's the Maryland Public Service Commission, and we hope that they will consult with us, but at the end of the day, they have all the decision-making power. So we can try to put these things in to preserve our farmland and direct where they go, but honestly, the counties do not have that control at all, unfortunately.
On the zoning, you do have some say, I mean, where they go.
When she tried talking to Jason Stanek, not so
know-
much.
Well,
We're gonna do our best. We're
Yeah.
gonna do our best.
we're
to
We're
put
doing the best
language
that we can,
We're gonna do our
knowing,
best to language to make sure
Yeah, I think
we
that's-
put these on the proper farms.
Right.
So to
Okay.
speak, so to speak. Mr. Counsel, did you want to come up? Are you good back there?
If you all have any questions, I'm
Yeah.
happy to answer them, but otherwise,
Okay.
I think
Well, like Mr. Lusher said, we really appreciate the effort you guys have put in there, and working with this, so I really appreciate it. Okay? Good?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Madam Secretary, could you go ahead and give the number to this and the date and the time, please?
This will be known as Bill number 1524.
Okay,
Public hearing will be on Tuesday, September 13th at 6:30 PM.
okay, that's great. Okay,
You did,
I'm sorry.
we need a show of hands.
Oh, I'm sorry. Would show of hands, please. Okay, yep. All right, sorry about that.
By all council present.
Yep. Okay. All right, now we got the crew right here now. Look at her, she's coming up. Okay, come on up, everybody. Okay, this is a presentation of the Talbot County Economic Development Commission, recommendations of the funding that we're gonna be getting for the Maryland Rural Economic Development Fund. So Cassandra's here, she's the director, and she's got her sidekick there, Reza, that keeps her straight, you know? Yes, so, how you doing, guys?
Great.
Good.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes.
And esteemed council members. Give me just a moment
Okay.
to get my, I don't want a new slide. Now I've done it. Oh, well. We'll just have a blank slide there. Sorry. All right. Good evening, council. We are excited to be here. This has been a long process, and we have gone to a lot of trouble to try and make a fair and open and equitable process so that we can take this source of funding and distribute it to our partners so that it will be invested in the best way possible for economic development. And I'm going to start by skipping this slide and going on to the description of what this project, what this funding source is. I want to make sure that everyone listening understands and that we are clear on where this money came from. Also, I will introduce my sidekick here. Mr. Reza Jafari is the Economic Development Commission Chairman, and Scott Warner has joined us, as well as Miss Amy Kreiner, who was on the committee that helped make these decisions. And I don't see anyone else, but we did have an in-depth committee. I'll get to that in just a moment. So in February, the governor appropriated $50 million for rural economic development. The Department of Commerce is administering this program, and it is being distributed through the regional councils. There are 5 regional councils in the state of Maryland. We are part of the Midshore Regional Council, along with Caroline and Dorchester counties. Scott Warner is the executive director of the Midshore Regional Council, and you all know him well. We work with him on a lot of different projects. So they have given us approximately $3.2 million to use for Talbot County projects, and that was a decision made by the regional council to distribute the way they would distribute it to the counties. And so basically we are making application for these funds. Midshore Regional Council will make a final application to the Commerce Department. And we had 23 applications that came in for this, and the EDC evaluated, ranked, and made funding recommendations. It was a very in-depth process. So everyone who submitted an application was invited to give a 3 to 4 minute summary of their project to the Economic Development Commission. And it was actually a fantastic overview of all the projects. And if you could listen to all of those projects and not get
Right.
a great view of what's going on in Talbot County, then you weren't listening to those. So
And
Basic-
Cassandra, I would,
Yes.
I want you to make sure that everybody understands. So we had 23 applications,
yes,
because everybody's gonna answer, well, I didn't know about it. So.
Right.
You know, so it's very important that, that it's been out there for a while,
right.
and you had
So
a
the
chance.
governor himself came to the Eastern Shore and announced it.
Right, right.
So,
That's very important.
Well, so let's go over the guidelines on how
Yeah.
this money
Yeah,
was
that'd be
to be
great.
used.
That'd be great.
So, and I'm going to read directly from the guidelines that came from the
Okay.
Department of Commerce.
Mhm.
The Rural Maryland Economic Development Fund seeks to fund infrastructure projects that will support economic development activity, stimulate private investment, and grow jobs in the state's rural economy. So not every organization can qualify for that because they don't function in that space.
Right.
And eligible uses include developing public infrastructure such as utilities, transportation, and broadband to support attraction, retention, or expansion of businesses, as well as infrastructure projects related to specific industry sectors such as, but not limited to, manufacturing, clean energy, life sciences, cybersecurity, and agribusiness. Funding can also be used for workforce development and stimulating entrepreneurship and innovation. So we feel like we got a great number of applications from people who are doing work in this space. I presented it at the town counties meeting, or county towns meeting, and sent the guidelines to all of the town managers. So all of our towns had access to the information. We, of course, had access to the information and submitted a number of applications. And then many of our partners who are working in this space. So, the word was out there that we were taking applications for this project. So, was there a specific question that you wanted me to address?
No, that was perfect. That
Okay.
was perfect. I just really wanted to educate people really what this
Right.
money is meant to be for.
Right,
Okay.
so, yes, and there was an article in the Star Democrat I presented to the county council
Yeah.
prior
No
to
problem.
our-
No
yeah,
problem. I
so-
just wanted to make sure.
we had a very thorough process, I believe.
You did. You
And, our Economic Development Commission was part of it, so, and the Tourism Board, so.
This is just more for people that are hearing it for
No,
the first
no,
time, that's
I
all.
completely understand.
Okay.
And then I also presented here on July 12th and gave an overview of the program.
And you did well.
Thank you. Okay, so it does have a short timeline on it, and you may be wondering why. And that's because it was part of the governor's budget, and that budget didn't pass until April, and then Commerce had to put out the guidelines, which I just read to you from.
Yep.
So then we had to put together what we were gonna do, because every county approached it differently. And so what we did was we opened it up and had an ecumenical process, or egalitarian process, where we invited, that's a $3 word there.
Yeah, that is.
And we invited those people who are working in economic development to make application, including all of our towns. So here's our timeline now. So I'm presenting our recommendations to you tonight. And those are made to you by the Economic Development Commission Committee who worked on this. And we must submit a ranked list of projects with complete applications to the Mid-Shore Regional Council by this Friday, August 12th. And then the Mid-Shore Regional Council is going to assess the applications that they receive. And then, and so I will need a letter of support from you all after this meeting, saying that you agree with our recommendations, and that will go to the Mid-Shore Regional Council. And they have to submit by September 2nd to the Department of Commerce. And that's the September date that you see there. And then by the fall, we should know who is awarded a grant. And again, we are making recommendations. So again, it was $3,250,000 $233,333. And that's one of the reasons you see some uneven numbers in our recommendations, because we wanted to spend every dime that we possibly could that was coming to us. And the EDC committee is recommending funding for 11 projects. I'm going to go over those projects for you and tell you the amount of dollars that we are recommending for each one. But first, I want to say that the Economic Development Commission really performed admirably on this task. I had put out a call to the EDC. 10 members volunteered and spent an enormous amount of time evaluating the applications, turning in their scores. We had a score sheet based on what the Department of Commerce was recommending. And then, after that, we had a full discussion, a 2-hour discussion, and then an additional discussion to make our final recommendations. And then, even more discussion after that. So we have worked on this, to refine it and do what we think is the best thing for Talbot County. And so I want to recommend or ask you to acknowledge the committee members. Reza, of course, is the chairman, and we've already talked about him. He was a lion in this thing, and he understands economic development as well as anyone I know. Ted Bounce, representing the town of Easton. Dr. Coppersmith from Chesapeake College. Shannon Dill, of course, brought the ag perspective, and Ron Engel represents the town of Easton on the Economic Development Commission. Amy, of course, is the executive director of the Talbot Chamber of Commerce. And Terenda Thomas is our workforce development person over of the Department of Labor, and brought a great deal to it. And Debbie Walsworth, an accountant, she owns BSC Group, and she asks amazing questions that I would never have thought to ask. And Jackie Wilson at Providence State Bank. And one person I left off, unfortunately, is Margaret Enlow North. Also brought great perspective to this and serves as the arts representative on the EDC. And of course, yours truly.
Yep.
So thank you to our committee for all the work that they put into this. Now let's go through our projects. We are recommending funding for Chesapeake College. They submitted an application for a future workforce training, and this includes the marine trades and the welding programs, and they're expanding into entrepreneurship for people in the trades, which we do a lot of work in that area. We're very supportive of that. And then we had to cut out part of their application because they couldn't qualify for one part that they asked for. They amended their application, and we're going to fund, I believe, a boat so that our marine trades people can train on that. So we're recommending, they made the same request from all counties, all 5 counties that they represent, and I believe all 5 are recommending support for them, and we are as well. They were our top-ranked project. $257,500 for that programming. The Maryland Broadband Cooperative, we're recommending funding for $240,000 for the Midshore Optical Broadband Network upgrade. We have a point of presence in Y Mills, and it serves the Midshore region, and so all of the ISPs who function in this region should benefit from that. Also, Caroline and Dorchester received the same request. This is a regional project. We're recommending full funding. The Avalon Foundation. This is a tourism development project. They are have a Stokes Pavilion that they put up during the pandemic, was very successful, and now they want to make that a permanent structure. So we are recommending full funding for them, $500,000, to seed their fundraising efforts for this. They assure me they can use this within the 2-year time frame, and this will make that a permanent structure. It will support small businesses in downtown Easton, and also many of us, including us, used that space during the pandemic for public meetings. Right. So $500,000 is our recommendation for that project. The town of Easton is requested money for the Port Street Improvement Project. They are proposing burying the power lines from Joe White Street down to the public boat landing. And that is an infrastructure project that will support the development of the waterfront there. And we're recommending $501,700 because I had an uneven number, and this is where we put it. So that is our recommendation for this project.
Can you give a little more detail on that one as far as the waterfront? Because we don't know, like, we have our landing down there, and what all are they looking, what is this money to be used for specifically?
Specifically to bury the power lines
To bury the
between
power lines.
Joe White
Okay.
Street, all the way down to the boat landing. So it's infrastructure, utility infrastructure in preparation for the development that they're expecting down there. So it's just the beginning of the things that are gonna happen there.
Okay, thank you.
We can come back to any of these, by the way. The Eastern Shore Entrepreneurship Center has proposed an ag biotech manufacturing project. This one is very exciting. Speculative, they have several businesses that they're working with in their incubator program, and are planning to put a manufacturing facility here in Easton. If we support their project, this is not the only money they need for this, and this is partial funding for this project. But what we're hoping is that this will attract ag biotech businesses that F3 Tech is currently working to support, and they have a whole incubator program. F3 Tech is supporting that, and we are recommending $400,000 for this project.
This is at Mistletoe Hall?
I don't believe this is at Mistletoe Hall. I believe they're considering Easton Technology Center. But
Oh,
again,
okay.
it requires funding to get to that point.
Sure.
So that is their proposal.
Nothing exists, they have nothing at this point? This is all brand new?
Right, so the Eastern Shore, and this might be a better question for Scott to answer. Eastern Shore Entrepreneurship Center is housed with him, and this would give them office space for F3 Tech and for their incubator program, and then they are going to be building and furnishing, partially with this money, the equipment that ag biotech businesses need, particularly the manufacturing business that has stated in a letter in their application that they would consider Easton after the incubation period. So we're considering this as a real attraction effort and an emerging industry for us. Again, we can come back. The Talbot County Free Library requested money for equipment. They are proposing a mobile lab that would have computers. We agreed to pay for only the computers, and they're working in the workforce development space, but we are not funding that portion of the program. We're funding equipment only with the $22,000 is our recommendation here.
And when you said mobile, explain that.
Laptops, and they'll be able to go set up a lab
Okay.
at a location outside
Outside the lot.
anything that's hardwired into
Okay.
their either of their library facilities.
Oh, okay.
So, you know,
Okay.
if they needed to go to Trapp and set it up, or
I
if
got
they
you.
needed to go to Tillman Island
I
and set it
see.
up,
I
or St.
see.
Michael's,
Okay.
well, they have they have a
Okay.
library in St. Michael's,
Okay.
but it would allow them to take equipment out to other places,
I see.
so.
Okay.
Building African American Minds is proposing a workforce development program. It had a youth component in it, and that's not what this money is for. So we are proposing to fund their adult program, and their proposal is that there are young people who are coming out of high school, they go into the workforce, and they're not prepared. And they're going to develop a program that will help prepare these young people to be employees of tomorrow. We're proposing $87,133. Talbot County Economic Development and Tourism, yours truly, we proposed an inclusive ventures program like the one they did in Anne Arundel County and also in Charles County. And it's training for minority women and veteran businesses. And this is only for the programmatic portion of it. We agreed to fund 2 cohorts, which would be approximately 10 to 15 people in each cohort over 2 different years. And we will be looking for, hint, hint, grant money. So this program typically gives a $5,000 grant to the program participants upon graduation to invest in their small business. $50,000 for that program. these may be different, I think I misnumbered on your application, on your PowerPoint. Talbot County Parks and Recreation, we are proposing $300,000 for the pre-development engineering and design on phase 2 of this park. That is the extended walkways, the pavilion, bathrooms, additional interpretation, and so this is only for the engineering and design on that. Our master plan shows that cost will be significant, and that the phase 2 portion of this is a roughly, and this was last year's numbers, $2.1 million phase 2 construction. But we're recommending the pre-development cost for that. This again is infrastructure for tourism development. This is where I changed the numbers, I believe. Talbot County Economic Development and Tourism, we will be doing a strategic plan. Our strategic plan ends at the end of this year. We had a 5-year plan. We did it in 2018, and it's time for us to do a new strategic plan. We're proposing hiring a consultant, putting out an RFP, hiring a consultant with this money, and recommending $125,000. And then finally, we are recommending $750,000 for Talbot County Public Works, Goldsboro Neck Culvert Replacement Project. So as you know, we've gotten almost $1 million from the Rural Maryland Council to widen that road from Mistletoe Hall to Glebe. That, of course, is not the only part of that project, but that is the part we're working on. And Ray has indicated that the culvert needs to be replaced there so that the rest of that road work can continue down all the way to Glebe. And we're recommending funding of $750,000 for that. Altogether, that brings us to 3.233333. And those are our recommendations. Questions?
Okay. Council. Go ahead, Corey.
Yeah.
Mr. Pack?
Well, thank you all so much for all your hard work, Reza and Scott. Ladies, thank you so much for doing this, and the other members of your committee. As these are recommendations, I do have one point that I would like to kind of focus on, and that is with the town of Trapp. A lot of these recommendations are proposals. These entities are not in place yet. They're ideas, but they're not actually something that they are continuing on an existing project. We do know that the town of Trapp is also proposing an expansion of their upgrade of their wastewater treatment plant. Of course, anyone who's been around Talbot County the last 6 months know that has been a big discussion of this council. And I saw here an opportunity to assist them with that, with these dollars. And it looks like the town of Easton has several projects on this list that they're going to benefit from. And this was the only one that looks on this list. And of course, anyone could apply. And I think that's the point that Mr. Callahan could have made. You know, we're not going to force people to apply. Anyone can apply. But I would have probably liked to seen that project assisted with some dollars. I mean, it's a $500 request. It's going to go towards an improvement of an E&R plant. We do know that you know, the Lakeside project is already underway. We've heard much testimony about that plant and their plans down there. I would like to see a way to assist them with some of these dollars. It just seems that that's something that is certainly a public good of an existing wastewater treatment plant.
Do you want to answer that? Do you want me to answer that?
You go ahead, and I'll follow you, absolutely.
Okay. So we discussed that at length with our committee, and we felt like it was a $14 million plus project, and $500,000 is a drop in the bucket. And we did not feel that that was adequate money to really help them. We're also not clear what the other $14 million would come from their application, and would they be able to do that in a 2-year time frame? That's not clear. Also, that is residential development and not economic development.
We asked those questions, by the way, if I may, Councilman. Add just a couple of more points to it. In the first round, we went through the entire kind of number of applications, as Cassandra mentioned. The town of Trapp had the representative presenting the case and saying what needs to be done and what needs to be kind of accomplished. We asked these questions, and we said, if you can help us to clarify to see what this $500,000 is going to do to you, if it is going to help you to get the matching fund, or it helps you to get other fund coming in, because as Cassandra mentioned, $500,000, when you have a $14.5 million project in your hand, it is not going to help you unless you have other areas already identified. And the answer was, we don't know where it's going to come from. There are also other opportunities for them to go for the funding, because as you know, there is an infrastructure that might be under the new law that has been signed by President Biden to come again, new infrastructure fund that is coming up. That would be probably more appropriate as opposed to this small amount of fund that is available to a much larger number of participants.
And that makes sense, especially the 2-year time frame. The minute you said 2-year time frame, like, yeah, this
And
isn't
they,
happening.
precisely, they could not say, they could not confirm that they can get this done in two years, because that project is going to be probably a 3 to 5 year project for the entire sewage system.
So the money has to be spent down in 2 years?
In
Yes,
less than
I'm
2 years,
sorry.
yes.
Yeah.
18 to 12 months, to 24 months, yes.
Yes.
Okay, so these dollars, they did not specify these would be for design or for engineering dollars, were these soft dollars? I mean, you can spend engineering dollars in 6 months.
Maybe they've already done that?
I don't know, I mean, I'm just asking a question.
They did not present it that way, because again, we asked those questions. They could not say that, yes, it's the part, just like with other projects that they're saying, if you give us the money, we can start the design process, we have the matching fund, or
Right.
we would be starting a fundraising. They could not clarify whether that would be possible, or that's a part of their plan or not. The plan that we were asking, it is not really in place yet. It is more of a concept as opposed to a plan in place, identifying the phases, identifying again what needs to be done on the engineering side, design side, and the rest of it. So unfortunately, they were not able to provide information, just like the other groups have provided, to be able to qualify themselves.
So, to be clear, the projects that are not funded are not that we don't support those.
Yes.
It's just that we felt like this was the best investment at this time of
Sure.
these resources.
Yeah, matter of priorities and matter of framework to see again what can be accomplished within this framework, within the time frame.
So my questions are about Talbot County projects and Easton projects.
Mhm.
I don't know if the scoring, if people recuse themselves from certain things. I mean, I see some zeros and things like that. If you kind of were part of that, if you kind of, if you or other people, if they're part of Chesapeake College and they were applying, they just took themselves out of that. There's also only 7 people listed here, and you had 10 or so on your
Right, not
committee.
everyone turned in scores,
Oh, okay.
so, but they did come to the meetings.
Um,
To be clear, if you had a conflict of interest, you either didn't score it or we dropped yours. So we dropped the lowest score on every one of them.
Okay, so that's what's in yellow.
Right, so if you're on the committee and you didn't have a project or you didn't have a conflict of interest, we still dropped the lowest score, whatever it was,
Okay.
to be
Go
fair.
ahead, Corey.
Go And what about the Chesapeake Maritime Welcome Center? That $500,000, that was not design money?
So, Pete probably can answer this better than I.
I
but
think I shouldn't.
I think you should probably should. So,
I mean, it just seemed like this is very centralized in and around the greater Easton. I mean, when we had an opportunity to
St.
spread the
Michael's.
funds throughout the county.
Well, there are two points related to it. That's very, very important questions that you're asking, Councilman. The one is, Easton is the center of commerce and the center of economic for the entire county. We are not discounting the importance of the other towns and other municipalities or other groups again inside the town and inside the county. But we wanted to know again, what is the best impact that we can get for the amount of that money that we are spending and the nature of the project, although you might say Easton, but the impact of that project is for the entire county. And sometimes the projects that is coming up from Traps, St. Michael's, or the other municipalities may not have the same impact. And so that was one of the elements of the discussion, again, 2 hours of the deliberation of the committee, the interviews that we had, again, the other conversations, and what is the best place that we can use this fund to be able to get the
So
best
you mean to
impact.
tell me that the St. Michael's Maritime Museum, the $500,000 would be more of an impact and it's not to be picking on BAM,
Yes, sir.
than a proposed workforce development project that hasn't even been created yet?
Well, the project of BAM, it is not only for Easton, although it seems to
No,
be.
I'm not saying it is, you're talking about impact.
Yeah,
The impact of the Chesapeake Maritime Museum as far as the number of people to come annually to that center
yes.
and to drive through, go down 33, stop at a restaurant, have something to eat, gas their vehicles up. You mean that has less impact?
I love that question because I have a very special place in my heart about Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum. But there's a difference between economic impact and economic development. Economic impact of the Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum has been proven through the economic analysis. The Waterfowl Festival, the same thing. Those are having economic impact. What the impact I meant was the use of this fund being able to deliver the result and the outcome that we were expecting in that kind of an impact. Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum is playing again a very, very significant role. We're doing everything we can to get the fund that the organization needs to be able to even do more, not only for Talbot, even for the entire Eastern Shore. But it is not going to be that piece, that is the economic development that we were focusing on, not the economic impact.
Another factor was that, and I gave them a
Wait a
zero.
minute, I'm sorry. And you're gonna have to maybe define, and I got my slow hat on today.
Yes.
So you're talking about the difference between economic impact
Yes.
and economic development.
Yes.
So if I am building a welcome center, that's not economic development?
Well, that piece is
come in anyway.
separate.
That's what I'm trying to make sure you, help me understand
Oh,
this.
no.
You're saying it's not economic impact, it's economic development. If I am building a welcome center, that's not economic development? If I'm building a center?
But it is not part of the infrastructure. The economic
It's not part of
development
it.
comes part of the infrastructure that is available to multi-users and multi-places. But the Welcome Center of the CBMM that I also happen to be a member of, the working group, the working committee, that is focused for the use of the Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum. That center is not going to be made available to anybody who, just like the road, just like the broadband, that anybody can come and go ahead and use it.
So I do feel that this is economic development in
I do-
deference
I
to
do.
my
I'm
chairman.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
But-
I'm still trying to figure it out too. If I'm building a welcome center, that's development.
Well, it's not the same kind of development as infrastructure for roads and
Yes.
utilities, et cetera.
Yeah.
However, it is tourism development, as we've established, is
Mhm.
important. And you can see I gave them a zero because I was on their master planning committee.
Okay, that's
So,
fair.
and
But
you-
that's
and you
fair.
dropped me, so we dropped my score. But I believe they got $1 million in the governor's budget.
Well, that-
And I felt that this was double dipping.
So now we're going to double dipping. So, I mean, let's look at the Schultz, and no disrespect to the Avalon Foundation, but let's look at them. They want to expand their pavilion, right? That's their, I haven't
wanna
read the
make it
proposal, and
permanent.
maybe I should read that. Okay, so if you apply that same logic that you just applied to the Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum, then why are they getting $500,000?
But again, that facility is available to public to come and, again, as Cassandra mentioned, holding meetings, holding, again, conferences, holding,
You
again.
can hold meetings down there?
Well, what Cassandra just said, because the governor does have funds that you can apply for, individual nonprofits or other businesses
Yes.
who can apply in the governor's budget, usually about this time between now and October. And if they've already gotten $1 million, I agree with you, because they have another source of funding to do that. And I think you do
Well,
need to look at those other things.
We certainly support this. I am 100% supportive of this. And
Absolutely.
again, I sit on their master planning committee. But, you know, in this lineup, with these parameters, that was what we decided. And it was partially based on the fact that they already got $1 million in the governor's budget.
Yeah, that makes
And
sense.
Councilman, please don't get.
Is that-
So they
misunderstand.
got penalized because they have a good project and they got additional funding. And I'm willing to bet, if I go through all these projects, most of them got additional money from elsewhere. Most of them got additional money from
So, I mean,
elsewhere.
what I would say again, the governor's money is governor's money. If they got it from other places, that's great. But you're right. If you've already gotten money in the governor's budget, I don't know that that we should award additional governor's budget money when there's other projects. There's a couple of others that I do want to.
Well, I mean, was that written in your procedure that you couldn't get
We did
double
ask.
dip? You
what
couldn't get
other
money
sources of
twice?
funding.
Yes.
Did that make them ineligible if they got other
Did
money?
not make them ineligible, and they
Oh,
were
okay.
fully considered.
Might just
That
change
was
the
a
score.
decision that we made.
If more funds were available to us,
And who would
many
you
of
take
those
it away
projects,
from?
yeah,
Well,
Do you
actually,
want me to go through the list?
well,
Yeah.
So-
Give me a week.
yeah, I don't know if we can do this tonight.
We can't do this now. Give me a week. I'll figure it out.
There's a couple that I think are maybe too big. I'm struggling with burying power lines. $500,000 when there are other projects, you know, that's a sixth or a seventh of the entire money or whatever that we have. Burying power lines. And plus they just got their, now I don't know whether they can use highway user revenues, but the towns, the municipalities were when we went through the highway user revenue bill this year, they're over and above whatever they ever had. They were 3.2 and now they're up to 3.6%. So I don't know whether you asked that question, whether burying power lines is eligible to use highway user revenues for, but they also got twice as much money.
We got $19 million in ARA money.
Right, so that's what, the other point
Yeah.
that I was gonna bring out is that the town of Easton got twice as much
Yeah,
ARPA
19
money
million.
that we got. I have personally, it's nothing about the town, I know we had a big hubbub about the town 2 weeks ago, but their highway user revenues have been more than fully restored, and they got twice as much ARPA money as we did. In my opinion, burying power lines is not where I would put $500,000.
No,
Um,
not when you have these other projects listed here that you
Right,
just
there's
gave
some other
nothing
things, and
to.
maybe you divvy up that a little bit more. Again, I know that we have to do, culvert improvements and things like that, and it's something that comes out of our budget. I don't know if $750,000 for our own roads project, and again, we didn't get our roads money fully restored, and we're still struggling with that, so I understand that. So that's a big difference between the town and the county, we didn't. But without thinking about this further.
So you want to take $250,000 from both of those projects and give it to the Maritime Museum?
Not necessarily, because they're gonna go to the Maritime Museum regardless. I mean, you're gonna have a nice, pretty, shiny new building, but it's not necessarily gonna bring more people there. They're already going, right? So I'm not saying that
Well,
I
it
would
is-
give them $500,000, but maybe there's, it's just some conversation that we need to, consider reducing a couple and adding a little bit. I mean, I don't know whether you go back and talk to the committee some more, or whether we just hash it out up here and wait until Frank's here to weigh in on whether we want to make any changes. I mean, I think generally, you guys have done a great job with the parameters you have, but just based on a couple of the questions that, we've talked about, and again, like I said, the towns have got roads money and ARPA money, and that's a big chunk.
Before we go,
Those are, if I may, those are very, very important questions. One element that Cassandra mentioned again as a part of the process. These recommendations are coming from the commission and the work that the committee has done under the leadership of Cassandra. By the way, she did not give herself much credit. She's done a phenomenal job. Again, everybody who's been involved, but she's done a great job of bringing this to where it is today. The decision is really yours, of the council. So you can drop any of those projects, you can add to any of those projects, you have all the applications available to you. So that final decision from you is gonna come to the Mid-Shore Council, and the Mid-Shore Council is going to say, this is now being approved by the County Council of Talbot. So that is what really the element of the decision is. And just making a quick comment in terms of your comments, Councilman Peck, that is extremely important. It is not that we did not look at, again, what money is available to the town of Easton, at how much that they have available to them to make a decision. Our recommendation was, if this is gonna be something that is gonna be built upon, again, going back to the economic development and multi-users and multi-tenants, so to speak, that deserves to have some fund. If I were sitting where you are sitting today, I would have looked at it and say, looking at the Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum, if that is gonna have more impact, not only economic impact, which is still a separate matter, but impact on tourism, impact on attraction of other investments and other businesses coming to town, they definitely deserve some recognition. And if we're going to take this fund from the eastern point and give it to the Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum, that would be very, very logical and reasonable.
Okay, well, if we could, council could take a couple of days and look at that, and there may be a particular project that we want to look at to reallocate some funding. I share Mrs. Price's concern that you're talking about building, digging a ditch and laying power lines to an area that may not be developed for the next 10 years.
Yes.
When we know that the Maritime Museum is an existing attraction, whether you're talking about economic development or economic impact, whatever way you want to phrase it, they're an important part of the economy of Talbot County of St. Michael's.
Absolutely.
And so I would like to see how we can sit down and see what we can do for that project. So if we could set this aside,
So-
Mr.
so-
Callahan?
Yeah, so, Scott, can you help us with the timeline, please? So if we take 2 weeks and come back the 23rd, that's not enough time, is it?
Not acceptable.
No, okay,
No?
It's due to our council on Friday.
okay.
So you're gonna bring us to us Tuesday, and we have to get us back to you on Friday.
No, excuse me, and I just want to make sure you're all really clear.
Come on, can you come on up, Scott, just to make sure you can clarify
I'm
for
not
us?
trying to be, I'm just telling you what.
I understand, but the timing stinks.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
So this was supposed to be in initially in the beginning of August. And I led an effort with all the regional councils to try to push this off, and I have the letter right here with Commerce to try to push this off to December 31st, because I said you guys were already under a tremendous amount of pressure, all 15 counties that have to figure this out, and the 5 regional councils, not only with your own budgets that are due by end of June, then you got ARPA money that's due, you've got all this other money. The response that the regional councils got back from the letter, I'll be more than happy to share with you, is we'll give you till September 2nd, not August 4th.
Okay, so
To
you
which
got
I
September
responded,
let him talk.
to which I responded, can we at least get another month? And they responded, no, I'm sorry, we need it by September 2nd. So I backed off and talked to my exec board. Mr. Callahan knows this, he was at every meeting that we had. So, and I was immediately, it's from the day I learned this, and all the other regional councils learned this, I called all 3 county managers. So I did not touch base with Clay that day. I talked with Jessica that day, because Clay was out and you called me the next day or Monday. Once we got the September 2nd deadline, I backed it as close as I could, because our council ultimately has to submit this. So we knew that we basically said it, that if we got this by this Friday, we basically get 2 weeks, because the other argument is you're all gonna be in Mako, and that's my board. So my board's not gonna meet at Mako to review 3 counties worth of projects, right?
So, can I ask
Yes,
a
ma'am.
question? If it's our decision, why do you need to review it? If we tell you it's these 10 or 11 or 12 projects, why can't we give it to you on the 23rd of August and you just rubber stamp it? Because it is our decision. Are you gonna change what we are giving you?
Yeah.
This is a compliance issue, and our board serves as a review and compliance board. The money, the grant itself, and the organization that's on the hook for this is the regional council. It is not a grant to any of the counties. It is a grant from Maryland Department of Commerce to the Midshore Regional Council. We have to have that grant in by September 2nd. We are told by Commerce that they will then turn around and write that grant once we submit all the projects within a month, and we will have to agree to that. We will then get that grant and get the full 10 million or whatever we apply for, and then get that to you. And what our council chose, our council is actually being very different, to be quite honest. Us, the Lower Shore, are doing identical. We decided to divide the three ways and give it exactly. The Midshore Regional Council didn't have to do that. This was Mr. Callahan's decision, and the exec board's decision was, let's get it to the counties, because that's what the governor wanted, and make it even, and not try to make all 3 counties get together and start, you can only imagine if it was all of you guys trying to figure out where it was going. So we said, hey, we're just gonna be the conduit, but where we, meaning Midshore, lies is the compliance part. And it's only fair for my board to be able to go through the compliance. We have a whole checklist that actually has been given to our economic development directors, but they have a whole compliance issue that my board, that are also made up of elected officials, have to make sure that when that grant goes from our desk with our consultant to Commerce, that it's compliant. And it's unfair for us to give them 1 day to look at it. I'll be honest, that meeting is gonna be August 24th. It took me 2.5, almost 3 weeks just to schedule one day in that week of August, and they all picked at 9 a.m. on August 24th, and I know Mr. Stamp actually changed his calendar just to be there that morning to kind of fit that. And I've got all 3 county managers and the executive board that is gonna, just compliance, and I am not looking for the board at all, to be honest with you, Ms. Price. We're not looking to rearrange. It will hopefully be just a rubber stamp. We've been so transparent with Commerce liked what we're doing, and what with you. So we are looking to rubber stamp as long as it's under compliance, and that's what I know this team has done. But it's just a timeline, because after that 24th is go, we then have less than a week and a half, meaning Midshore, to actually write the grant. I mean, literally put together over 20-some projects in a grant form that Commerce isn't even giving us exact what it's gonna look like, and submit that by September 2nd to make sure we get the most money for our counties.
May I make a suggestion?
You're more than welcome.
Okay, so what if we thought there might be 2 or 3 other things on here? And I think that's really kind of all we've talked about, 2 or 3 other things. And we said, but we left off the amount right now. We said, okay, these 10 or 11, plus possibly the Maritime Museum, or could you then talk about the compliance, and then we might drop 1 or 2 off? Would something like that work? Well, let's say we approve 14, and you check the 14 on compliance, and then we whittle it down to 11 or 12 with some different amounts.
I'll be more than happy to work with Ms. Vanhooser and Mr. Stamp and try to figure out the best wiggle room we can get for you.
Because I think it's just a matter of we might, want to change the amounts and add maybe 2 other projects in.
I've purposely not gone to any of these meetings to not get sucked into this. I'm gonna be really honest with you. There's a meeting going on right now in Dorchester because they met and they're having a special meeting. Ask any of your counterparts. They met to meet last week. They have to have a special meeting because they had 2 or 3 projects, I believe, that they were the same thing you're going through. Ms. Vanhooser asked me to be here, and the reason, what I can tell you is I also only sat in because she asked and he asked. I did sit in on your review committees. I didn't make a comment other than if Reza asked me compliance type issue. Your committee did a heck of a job, and these 2 people sitting here, and they know this, did a heck of a job, and I can honestly tell you, they had the same questions a lot of you had, but they had a committee they were answering to, so that, I hear them justifying to you on certain things that I know they didn't necessarily agree with, but they went with their committee. So with that said, you can do what you want, because it's ultimately whatever you give us, you're gonna, in that letter.
Right.
But we just need time frames for you, Mr.
Right,
Callahan,
right.
to be able to take a look at this and not walk in on one day, because you're gonna have a little homework to read other counties as well, just to make the compliance, and we have a 1.5-page checklist.
Okay.
But I'll work with you guys as much as we can, and maybe give you a couple extra days if
Right.
I was promised to turn it around.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Stamp, you want to say something?
Well, I was going to say, council, if
Yeah.
we could provide you with all the projects, and if you could provide some feedback to staff here, we could, with your opinions, we could take a look at that and then flip it around, turn it back to you, and see if we can't come up with something that from a straw poll you could agree to.
Absolutely.
Also, all the applications are blank. They uploaded it for each project, but they're actually all blank applications. So if we could get a redux on that,
No,
yeah, I clicked on every single one of them and they're all blank.
I checked them in Granicus, in my Granicus, and I checked what I downloaded, because,
We'll ensure
same
that.
thing.
And
Yeah.
look,
So Scott,
let me,
I looked at the same thing, the word
Yeah.
blank.
so everybody understands, Mr. Pack, just a couple things. So, first of all, when this come to the council, regional council, 4 months ago? So Scott was put in a position on what to do, and it was up to the executive committee, like he said, for us to come up with a game plan. So the game plan was to give the 3 counties $3 million. So let's make sure we're appreciative of what we've done there. So we have give Talbot County $3 million, okay? We didn't have to do that, because we could have clumped that up into 10 million, and it would have been all kinds of craziness. It would have been.
It would have been, yeah.
Okay, so let's think about, just for a second, think about what we asked the committee and Cassandra and Reza to do. They've done their job. They've done their job at 99%. We might need to rearrange it. It's up to us 5 council to go ahead and tweak this thing. But I don't want to discourage anybody because you worked hard. They did what we asked them to do.
We both said.
Yeah,
No,
nobody-
I
They did a
know,
great job.
I know, and I don't want it
No one
to.
is no one is discounting their efforts, Mr. Callahan. I
Yep.
said,
Yep.
my opening statements were, thank you very much for your efforts.
Yep.
But ultimately, it's the council decision on where these funds will go. And thank you for your efforts as far as being on the
Yeah.
Mitchell
No,
Regional
I'm with
Council.
you.
All I'm saying to Scott is
It
that,
just feels like, me sitting here listening, me here listening, I want them to make sure they don't go away to feel like, you know, they did work,
Am I being
a lot
tough
of
on
work
you?
for no reason.
I don't-
I'm just saying,
I
I'm
don't,
just
am I
saying.
being, I don't think I'm asking tough questions. I mean,
Yeah.
people gotta stop coming here expecting this council just to stamp things and send you on your way.
Right.
If you can't answer a few questions, then I'm sorry. I mean, my job here is to ask questions.
No, I'm just.
That's part of my job, is to ask questions. So
I'm just
if-
saying
if
how we
it-
got
if it-
here.
If it's a little tough, I apologize. Let
We
me
asked
speak
all the same
softer.
questions.
Let me speak softer. I apologize. You know, let me go down a couple octaves. All I'm asking is that some of the projects, how you came to those decisions. If council can get those, and Ms. Price is right, they are blanking. I don't know what happened, but they're blank. So we need some time, Scott, to look at this and come to a decision. You talk about being on a fair time frame. You can't give us this on Tuesday and say we need to get it back to you on Friday. And I know you said that we have it till September the 2nd. So if we can get maybe just a week to work on this and get it back to you guys to look at, then that's all we're asking for.
I'm fine with that,
Okay.
Mr. Pat, to work with you on this. But the one thing I do want to correct, and I'm going to be very honest, that we didn't come to, Midshore Regional Council didn't come to you today and ask you for this. An email went out to my entire board, which all of you sit on February 18th, 5 hours after I got this word from when the governor announced. A week later, another email went to the entire Mitchell Regional Council. And I've got every copy here. And we've sent multiple copies, and my only point is, we set it up as best we could, and it wasn't us that put any kind
I
of,
understand.
I actually backed it up to come, that it comes, all I knew was it had to come to my board by this Friday at close of business, so I could get it to my board, that's all. Everything else has been however the county wanted, any of the counties, not just you,
Yeah.
any of the counties wanted to do it, we just knew we had to give you a date, which was this Friday.
Right, this
That's
is not you, and, you know, you guys did a great job with the committee, but we probably should have seen this 2 weeks ago, to be honest. It's kind of like that letter we talked about.
So you were
we-
supposed to see
we-
it 2 weeks ago, but we were not finished with our committee deliberations.
And that's the problem, is that you all weren't finished, and again, you had to go through the deliberation. It's no knock on you guys at all to be as thorough as possible, but we also have to be thorough. And this is not enough time to have a weekend to go through it and hear the presentation, right? So we see it, we see a score and stuff like that. But for us to be able to ask you questions and then think about, you know, what your responses are and then come up with a decision 5 minutes later, I just don't think is being thorough. Think about how much time you all took being thorough. We need that same opportunity. So I
Well said,
understand.
Mrs. Price, well said. I'm serious. I mean, I know, I'm serious
Oh my
because
God, this is like 2
people
meetings in a
don't-
row that we agree.
people just, okay, and
We're gonna leave,
I
we are
know.
gonna leave here
don't
friends.
start it, don't start it.
Mr. Lesher, did you have a question?
Well, I was simply going to ask, because we were getting into individual applications, but I think you've really gotten there. My question was to give a broader overview of the scoring system and the decision process, but I think that you've essentially answered that question by addressing the more detailed application by application
Well, so,
questions.
just to be clear, every applicant that we had at the time of the EDC meeting, which was July 16th, that's right. I presented here July 12th. Every applicant presented on the 16th. We had three more come in after that. Presented a 3 to 4 minute summary of their project verbally, and then submitted a full application by a certain deadline, and then the applications went to the committee for review. And then after we had all the scores, we deliberated amongst ourselves in a negotiation style to get to the recommendations that we made. So, does that clarify our
Thank you.
process?
Thank you.
Yes,
So-
it wasn't simply on scores, because there was a lot of,
Give
you
and
can
take,
see,
yeah.
there's a lot of fluctuation in the scores, and, you know, we ultimately discussed every project at length to make sure that we were doing the right thing, or making the right recommendation.
Thank
It's up to you to do the right thing.
Okay, thank you. So council, like, Mr. Stamp suggested, do we want to take a couple days and go ahead and try to sort of rearrange a few things, and
So when are we meeting to do that?
we can meet tomorrow night or Thursday night?
Yeah, I don't know, we can,
Mr. President,
Yeah.
may I recommend again, having gone through this process, having
Yeah.
seen everything,
Yeah?
I'd like to put myself available at your disposal and become a volunteer, if you will,
Sure.
to participate in a deliberation and conversation, if it's okay with you, and I'm not crossing again any legal lines or other matters.
Yeah.
Because I believe the best way and the most effective way of doing this would be having all members of the council to look at it again, almost like a work session.
Mm-hmm.
That becomes another work session. We turn it into, taking these projects, every single one of them, and again, Councilman Peck asked again all the great questions, Councilman Price, yourself, and Councilman Lesher.
Mm-hmm.
So we will just put them all on the board, the work session, roll up our sleeves, go through these, and when you come out of the work session, by the end of the day, you would be having what you feel comfortable.
I don't know that we have
time.
time to do this work session and get this all organized with all these people. You know, we all leave on for Mako next Tuesday or Wednesday, you know, whether it's something,
I'm talking
think
about the
about-
next 72 hours or so.
We're available to answer any questions.
Any questions,
And
I'm
we
sorry.
can do whatever format
Whatever
that
works for you.
you see
So
fit.
if council wants to try to hold a work session, that's fine. We could try to figure that out. Or if council thinks you're 95% there with the committee recommendations, but you look at the additional projects and you want projects added, you can verbalize that with staff, send it into the county manager's office. We'll assemble that together, work with Cassandra, and we'll try to get to a place where there's comfort.
right, so can we
And-
go back to my suggestion of adding 2 or 3 projects if each of us has something else we'd like added? That way you can check your compliance box, Scott, and then we might eliminate something or change an amount. The amount really shouldn't matter, it's either compliant or not, right? And then finalize it.
Why don't you come back in?
Yeah.
No?
You're absolutely correct.
Would that work?
I'll be honest, I know one county, not in this district, that's putting one project in. It doesn't matter if it's compliant, it doesn't matter if it's one project or 20 from a county. All we're worried about is make sure that grant goes through is compliance. You're absolutely correct.
So why don't you give us a couple days to see if any of us want to add a project and turn it in for compliance, and then, you know, can we change the amount on the 23rd? If we said we want to take something from 500,000 to 300,000, and if we've, something like that?
Yeah.
Will that work for you?
You gonna have enough time, Mr. Callahan? I mean, it's my exec board has to review stuff, so as long as they're fine, and Mr. Stanton, as long as they have enough time to read the information.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right, so
So-
what your board may be reading is, say, 14 projects, right? But by the 23rd, we may narrow it back down to 12. So they will have read on 14, but we've changed some amounts, or we've narrowed it down to 12. So they've already done that reading work, and all we would be doing at that point is eliminating.
Right, right.
All I would just ask you to be kind of considerate to my board in the fact that you're not the only county that has multiple projects, so I have other, you know, they also have to read everybody else. That's all I'm saying, if they get a couple more days than 1 or 2, that's all.
Right, I don't think we're turning this upside down. I think we have 1 or 2 that we might want to reduce or eliminate, and 1 or 2 that we may want to add. Generally, I think it's 90% there.
Okay. All right, so council's gonna have to get together Thursday or Friday.
Is Frank on vacation all week?
Yeah, yeah.
So that
But
doesn't-
he could do a call in, and we really need to take this to a public vote. So, let's see.
Thursday night?
Yeah, Thursday night, want to see what, 4 or 5, 6?
Why 5?
Well, here's my dilemma. If we're going to put a certain project on, up for consideration here, I simply have to recuse myself from the process, because there's an applicant that is my
Yes.
employer. And so I think that, I think I need not to be in the room for that discussion.
Well, if we're discussing that particular project, you
Yeah.
can leave, but you don't need to
Right.
recuse yourself from the whole process.
It'd be just that one.
Oh,
We'll let you
we'll
know that.
discuss the parameters of the recusal with staff.
Okay,
and-
okay, yep.
So
So
So-
I'm hearing,
So, are we good for, are you good for 5 o'clock Thursday?
yep, we'll make it happen.
Or can we make it happen? Okay.
Is this going to be an in-person meeting or a Zoom meeting? I don't know what people's schedule will.
I'm thinking in person.
I can come in.
I can come in at
Mhm.
on Thursday.
5 o'clock on Thursday, all right.
Good for Thursday?
Mm-hmm.
And you would like Cassandra and Reza to be there?
Yes,
Okay.
uh-huh.
And
Right,
just
yeah,
check with
okay.
Frank to see if he
And
can
check with
call
Frank,
in.
maybe
We will.
he could be on the phone.
And we'll advertise the same so the public has notice of your meeting.
Okay, that'd be great. That's the way to do it.
And again, thank you all so much. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
So in retrospect, I wish I hadn't made the word questions quite so large.
That's right.
No,
You live and learn. You live and learn. You live and learn.
actually, I would like to say that I am not offended by your questions.
Okay.
That the same deliberation and, consternation that you feel over making these decisions, we've been feeling that same thing. It is totally legitimate. We want to do the right thing, and I appreciate your input and your attention to this. And I'm sorry it was a short time frame, but
Yeah.
that's what we, were saddled with. So we would have normally done it in a different way. Also, I will say about a work session that as I was putting together the materials, I did think we should have had a work session, but that's in retrospect. So again, thank you very much for your input and for your time this evening for allowing us to present.
So we'll see you all
Thank you.
Thursday.
Thank you,
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
You wanna be here?
Yep,
Thank you.
thank you.
I have to
Thank
check
you.
the availability of the room
Or
first.
maybe on Bay Street, maybe? I don't know. Okay.
Okay.
So council, I just did get a text from Councilmember DeVillio who will be able to attend that meeting.
Nice. Good.
Um,
Perfect. That's perfect.
Mr. Callahan, Mr. Stamp, does this mean that we need to declare Thursday, August 11th, a special legislative day?
No, it's a work session.
It is a work session.
It's
We're
a work
taking a
session.
vote.
I believe it's a meeting, it's not it does not need to be a special legislative day, this is
You're
not
not
legislative.
passing any legislation.
Okay,
It's just
Right.
another
okay.
Right. Okay.
Okay?
So we're on board for Thursday here, or possibly here at 5
Or Bay
o'clock.
Street, or Bay
Yeah,
Street,
okay,
wherever. Yeah.
okay,
Library.
at 5
Throw
o'clock.
that away first thing in the morning.
Okay, that'd be
Hopefully
great.
to be here,
Okay.
5 o'clock Thursday evening.
Okay, 5
Thank
o'clock
you,
Thursday.
appreciate it. Thank you,
Thank
Cassandra.
you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Cassandra. I
Cassandra.
appreciate it. Okay, you're on board here.
Well, thank you,
Yep.
council.
Up to
County
you.
Under county manager report, there are a number of items this evening. The first are board and committee appointments. The first board and committee appointment request is for the Historic Preservation Commission, requesting the reappointment of Catherine Phones to that commission.
So moved.
Second.
I made the motion.
Motion
Yeah.
second.
Okay, I was reading something. So, sorry about that. Got a motion second, Madam Secretary. Could you call the vote, please?
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Mr. Pat?
Council, next is the Local Emergency Planning Committee, requesting the appointment of Ronald Lewis to represent Shore Regional Health and Nick Greenhawk to represent Eastern Utilities on the Local Emergency Planning Committee, and the reappointment of Dana Meitzer, Matthew Spence, Shannon Potter Dill, Joe Gamble, and Judy Bottorff to that committee.
So moved.
Second.
We got a motion second. Madam Secretary, could you call the vote?
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Mr. Pat?
All right.
Next is the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. The Town of St. Michael's is requesting the appointment of Dr. Kristen Ann Lysett as their representative to that board.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, we got a motion second. Madam Secretary, could you call the vote, please?
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Mr. Pat?
All right.
The next item is referring to the Police Accountability Board and Administrative Charging Committee, requesting the appointment of the following individuals. As chair of the Police Accountability Board, Mr. Mitchell Ettinger of St. Michael's. you want me to go through all of them and ask for?
Yeah,
Yes,
if you
yes,
wouldn't mind,
please.
yeah.
Okay, that would, Mr. Ettinger would be your chair. For the Easton area, Police Accountability Board would be Mr. John Gilbert. Easton Area Police Accountability Board, Mr. Chris Rice. Oxford area, John Pepe. St. Michael's area, Mr. Mike Bibb. Sheriff Area 1, Ms. Connie Webster. Sheriff Area 3, Ms. Joanne Murray. And for the Administrative Charging Committee, 2 individuals would be Ms. Jennifer Williams and Ms. Constance Hope. Asking council approval for the membership.
So move.
Second? Do we want to have,
Yeah,
do we
Miss-
want
yeah.
to say anything about?
I would.
Yeah,
You go first, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I just, you know, I was really concerned when this legislation passed, and I was very, you know, we already have a hard time with morale and everything with police officers, and, you know, more of them get, you know, a bad rap, and I really was concerned that this board might turn into something where that was just gonna be so against them. And I was really impressed with every single interview that we had, and how they spoke about not only giving transparency and making the citizens feel like they were heard on those types of things, but also, and equally, what the police officers could gain from this, that they did do their job right. And I think every single person, when we asked that question, answered it in that way. This ended up being a much more difficult choice. We have amazing applicants, and there are so many. And those of you who applied, I want to thank you so much, because, you know, there were some, I mean, most of you, we would have liked to have been on there. So, you know, please, you know, stay involved with it. I'm really excited about who we have, and my heart feels much better about this board than I originally thought a year ago. So thank you for everybody who applied, and congratulations to those who are going to be on the committee.
Thank you, Ms. Price. Mr. Pack?
Yes, I'll just dovetail right where Ms. Price ended to say thank you for all the applicants who applied for both the charging committee and the Police Accountability Board. We did have a wealth of applicants in knowledge and background as far as their length of service in other areas. And so it just goes to speak to the richness of Talbot County, that you have such a pool of candidates to draw from. I think that these members that this council came up with, these 8 individuals, will serve in their capacity well. I will agree with Mrs. Price. I think their responses to council regarding not only in the necessity of these police accountability boards, not just here in Talbot County, but across the state of Maryland and also in other states as well. It's a sad day that we have to have these police accountability boards in place, but they also serve a dual purpose. They do serve as a way of exonerating officers who did the right thing. Just because you got pulled over and the officer actually stepped out of the car doesn't mean the officer did anything wrong if he followed his training and his procedures were done correctly. But at the same time, it gives the public some assurance that there is a separate body there working with the police and agencies here in the county to make recommendations to them as to how to maybe address some of the issues that come about. Look, we don't have a plethora of issues here in Talbot County as they may have in other larger jurisdictions, thank God. But you know, we're not perfect by any stretch. There's always room for improvement. So I was equally impressed with the candidates and very happy with those selections that we made. And I think they'll do us well, and they'll do the police and agencies well as well. These are not catch-me boards. They're not out to get anybody. And I think they made it very clear that they want to hear what happened and address it appropriately.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Mr. Pack. Well said. Mr. Lesher?
I just want to thank not only those, really all of those who volunteered for this service. We had really quite an impressive response, and only so many slots. There were really quite a lot of interested and qualified persons in this community who are offering their service for You know, the training requirement for this is substantial, and I want to express my appreciation for all of those who stepped forward.
Thank you, Mr. Lusher, and I just want to add with my colleagues too. So this really brought everybody together, all the professionals, all the towns, all the chiefs. That brought everybody together, and I think the people that we interviewed were very professional, very top-notch people, and like you said, Mr. Pack, this isn't a catch committee here. This is something that you get one shot at it, and I think we've done a great job, and I think you know, we'll see how things go, and hope for the best, and you know, hopefully they're not that busy, you know. So you know, so that's what we'll hope. So anyway, we got a motion in. Oh, go ahead, Mr. Pat. Or yeah.
Well, I would just like to recognize your hard work on this very important committee, Council. You spent a lot of time and effort to make sure you met with these individuals, and I agree, the quality of the individuals are amazing. The chair, quite capable, will work well with everybody that they need to work with. As far as staff, we have a new staff member, Victoria Bradley, who is in the Office of Law, who will be their administrative support branch. Staff will work with the appointees and line up introductory meetings. And if council would like, we'll invite the chair to come meet council.
That'd be great.
And so
great.
I thank you for your consideration for the vote.
Yep. And Patrick, I want to commend you. You were a big help with all this too. Very big help, and you're a big part of this.
Thank you very much.
We really appreciate your hard work.
Thank you.
So, okay, Madam Secretary, we got a motion second on the floor. Could you call the vote?
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Mr. Lusher?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Mr. Pack?
Okay.
Thank you, council. We'll bring your county engineer forward.
There we go. Bring him on up here.
Yeah. So he has a couple requests of you this evening. The first one, he's requesting your consideration to award bid 2205, Talbot County Sanitary District Sewer Extension, COVEY Avenue, Tillman. You'll remember he was in at the last council meeting, asked for your permission to renegotiate the scope of a contract. He'll share with you his ask this evening. Ray.
Yep. Thank you, council. Again, I had the opportunity to, I guess, meet with Miles Retallick in relationship to this. One of the things that the plans identified was basically an open section cut for the pipe for the trench. It also required, I guess, more of a packing, let's say, for under a road. Working with Mr. Retallick, he offered some suggestions on how we could reduce the price. We had identified also a manhole where we don't need to put a manhole in. At the same time, he's going to be directional drilling, and we'll go right into the manhole, and then he'll use what they call a missile to go right through the manhole. Saves a lot of money to do that. So based upon Mr. Retallick's and my discussions, I think earlier last week, he got the price down to about $60,000. So my recommendation is to award the project to Retallick and Sons for $60,000.
Okay. No, all right. So.
Did you have to reduce the scope a lot? I mean, it's kind of like.
We actually, we went from an open section, which would have been like under a road, to going to a directional drill. So it's ultimately about a 3-inch pipe. It's not, I guess when we look at, when you're doing an open section cut, you really have to worry about the foundation for the pipe. Whereas when you're directional drilling, the foundation is the soil itself. So we don't have to worry about worrying about how we pack that pipe in an open cut. So it was actually better to do it directional drilling. It was probably a mistake on our part in establishing an open cut. Yeah.
So it's going to get the job done that we need to have done.
Yes.
Okay. That'll make a motion.
Yep. Okay. So we got a motion second on the floor on bid 2205 to award it with the engineer agreement with Ray to award that to Mr. Retallick.
Right.
Madam Secretary, could you call the vote?
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Mr. Lusher?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Mr. Pack?
So the next
Okay.
item Ray wants to talk to you about is seeking your permission to award bill number 2208, request letters of interest, architectural engineering services for Talbot County Department of Public Works. These are for open-ended engineering services contracts, and Ray's here to go over that with you.
Council, again, we had an open engineering services contract where we have Davis Bowen Fidel, Lane Engineering, and Walsh Montgomery that are part of that open-ended engineering contract. We actually rebid that out and had 6 firms apply. In that, we had, I guess, Century Engineering, which is currently doing work for us on Resolution 250. At the same time, we have Rao Incorporated doing work for us with the St. Michael Sewer Project, as well as the Preserve at Y Mills at some point, as well as the Ferry Point wastewater design. And we had another firm that was an architectural firm. And I think with the amount of workload that we're seeing within our office, we would probably be better off to have more firms that we can maybe go and select from, and at the same time maybe ask them for proposals and try and get a little competition going on with that, and kind of keep it as an open. It'd be more of a, let's say, a pre-qualified list that we can then go to those firms and then seek proposals from those pre-qualified firms, and then move forward with recommendations.
So, Mr. Clark, can you explain this project a little more? Because usually when we award a bid, we're awarding to the lowest bidder.
Correct.
In this case, you're asking us to, with this open-ended arrangement, to award it to all 6 of the engineering firms. This does not actually approve any expenditure to any of these firms at this time. Is that correct? That requires a further act of council. It requires further bid preparation on your part before that actually comes about.
Right, and so the council, and as well as the public knows, what we do is part of our RFP, request for proposals, we set for kind of a little sample project of $100,000 for engineering services. So we ask them to go ahead and provide us with their cost per person for like the project managers, senior engineer, things of that nature. Survey crews, so they give us those prices as if it's a project that we're looking at for $100,000. We then and then we look at their, discuss with them the approaches that they would have. And as you pointed out, what we now have is we have those firms' prices. They'll hold those prices for us for 2 years, and then if we want to award to them again, they'll hold it for another 2 years. The advantage we have by now having these firms, we do what we do today. We'll prepare a scope of work. We'll go to that firm with the scope of work, ask them to give us a proposal for that work. At that point, we haven't competed with the projects with some of the firms, but I think now we will be trying to look at doing some competition with 1 or 2 or 3 of the firms, asking them to give us a proposal, but then having them submit something back to us based upon the scope, utilizing those prices that they provided to us. But then at that point, that would come before the county council for a recommendation to award.
Right.
Okay. Thank you. I think that adds clarity.
Yep, yep. Mr. Pack, Ms. Price, you good? Okay. All right. So, we got a motion and a
Yeah. I'll make a motion.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion second for Bill 2208, for recommendations of 6 firms that Mr. Clark can choose from, and when he gets into a situation, it's over his head, okay? All right. Madam Secretary, could you go ahead and call the vote, please?
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Mr. Pack?
Aye.
Okay.
The next item Ray has for you is he's requesting, it's a request from the Department of Public Works to purchase a 2023 Chevrolet pickup truck for the use of Talbot County Sanitary District. As you read in your agenda packet, requesting council approval of the 2023 pickup truck with a utility body and towing package from Sports Chevrolet Company Incorporated of Silver Spring, Maryland, in the amount of $52,890, utilizing the state of Maryland blanket purchase order means for procurement. Truck will be used by the Talbot County Sanitary District, and there are sufficient funds in the FY23 budget for this purpose.
So moved.
Okay. Got a second? Okay, we got a motion second to get Ray a sanitary truck for the guys. Madam Secretary, could you call the vote?
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Mr. Lusher?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Mr. Pack?
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Ray. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ray.
Thank you, Ray.
And the final item I have for you, council, is actually board and committee appointments. I neglected to add this to my initial offering to you, but requesting your consideration for the reappointment of Mr. Bill Anderson as Chair of the Public Works Advisory Board.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and second to reappoint Bill Anderson. Madam Secretary, could you call the vote?
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Mr. Lusher?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Mr. Pack?
Aye.
And that concludes your county manager report for this evening. Thank you, council.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Jess, do we have anybody for public hearing? Do we have anything? No.
Not this evening.
We have nobody. Nice. Okay.
Ghosts out there.
It is. Okay. All right, we got council comments. Look at Corey.
I don't know,
At least you're laughing over there, you know?
we must have been boring the
I
last
know
couple
it.
of months. No one's calling in, no
I
one's
know
calling
it.
in to talk
I
to
know
us. I mean, we gotta spice things up.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
because we're on our way out the door.
Oh, they were here 4 or 5 months ago. So, no, I just, I don't have a lot to say. I know we're going off to Mako next week,
Yep.
for our annual conference, down in the city. So look forward to seeing, staff and council members down there for that event. Other than that, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Pack, Ms. Price?
I too am looking forward to next week and running around like a chicken with my head
I
cut off.
can't believe that. I
Yes,
can't
but
believe
it's
that.
gonna be good, and we are having the governor will be doing the opening session with us. The Taste of Maryland reception is back on Thursday, and we are having a candidate forum on Saturday with the 3 major candidates for governor, comptroller, and attorney general. So that'll be a good one to see on Saturday. So, and then I'm gonna need a nap.
Okay. Mr. Lesher?
Nothing further tonight.
Wow, nothing. Okay. I guess the only thing I have to say tonight is on the opening prayer, there's been, like Mr. Lesher said, there's been 3 families really hurt and very tragically. And I would ask everybody to say a few prayers because these people need a lot of support from the community and a lot of support from us. And if anything we can do for them to help them to ease that pain, because they're in pain right now, and hopefully the Lord can look down on them and help them and get through this tough time. And anything that we can do, I'd be glad to help them. So just wanted to say that. Mr. Lesher, you want to wrap things up for us?
The County Council's next meeting will be held on Tuesday, August 23rd, beginning at 6 o'clock p.m. The council will be convening an open session at 4:30 p.m. and then adjourning into closed session to discuss real estate, legal, and personnel matters as listed on the statement for closing that meeting. The council will also be meeting on Thursday, August 11th at 5 o'clock p.m. For a workshop or session on, what do we say, on these grants? Yep. On awarding grants. Therefore, is there a motion to adjourn this meeting and reconvene as noted?
So moved.
Motion second, and Madam Secretary?
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Mr. Lusher?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Mr. Pack?